Welcome everyone to my presentation, Top Tips for Identifying DNA Matches. And I want to start by talking to you about setting yourself up to succeed. Firstly, test your older generation relatives if you possibly can. And if you are the older generation, then think about testing some more of your peers within the family. Simply because our older generation relatives have more of our ancestors' DNA than we do. Parents have double, for instance. Let's look at this example. Anne, in her 80s, sharing 25 centimorgans with me on MyHeritage. To be honest, I never even spotted this match on my list. It wasn't a priority. But then I tested my dad's first cousin, that magic generation closer with more of our ancestors' DNA. And she shares a very interesting 123 centimorgans with Anne. So now I really want to work on this match and get to the bottom of it. Think of your ancestors' DNA like a collection. Your own DNA is just a subset, just one jigsaw piece in the collection. The segments of DNA your relatives inherited that you didn't are equally valuable for your family history, and you should aim to add them to your DNA collection if you possibly can. So a major tip, build out your own tree. Your direct ancestors first, of course, and then especially your collateral lines. Build your tree out as far and wide and deep and robust as you possibly can. It is your best reference set to help you with identifying your matches. After exhausting your direct ancestors, move on to those amazing collateral lines. That's the siblings of your direct ancestors. The more of these lines you can build forward to living people in the present day, the better your chances of identifying your DNA matches on your own tree when they show up in your match lists. Because after all, it's the descendants of these collateral lines that are going to show up as your DNA cousins. Link your DNA results to your tree. This is especially important on Ancestry and MyHeritage. If you know anything at all about your ancestry, then create or upload a tree and you'll be helping yourself as well as others. And then link that tree to your results. Make the system work for you by linking your tree to your results. You're going to get a lot of benefits from doing so. And the tree that you link to your results, make sure that it is a full tree with all of your direct ancestors on it. Another major tip, I'm highlighting these because they are so important for your success. Build out the trees of your matches. You just need a starting point to do that. Many matches will have very small trees, private trees, unlinked trees, or even no tree at all in many cases. Trees are vital for identifying connections, so don't bypass those without developed trees. Don't just accept the tree's too small to find the link. Be proactive and build it out yourself. You'll be amazed at the success you can have if you put time into this tree building endeavor, and build all of the trees of your DNA matches on one master research tree. Streamline your research and keep it in one place. I would recommend using Ancestry for this and making it a private and unsearchable tree. Pick off the low-hanging fruit. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're following all my previous tips and you're setting yourself up for success, then you are going to get things like common ancestor hints, like I have here with my match, Marion. The reason we're getting this hint is because both Marion and I have built trees on the site, and we've linked them correctly, and we've built them far enough back for the system to notice that we have the same ancestors on our trees, our shared great-grandparents, which makes Marion and I second cousins, and that is what the hint is suggesting we are. Now, this is an accurate hint because I know Marion and she is my known second cousin. I got her to test. However, some of these won't be as accurate, so treat them as clues. Never assume they're correct. Investigate them thoroughly before adding any new information to your tree. Corroborate, 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 as I always say, or perhaps evaluate, as Ancestry put it. These common ancestor hints and through lines and theory of family relativity hints on MyHeritage, etc., are great tools for giving you some easy confirmed matches to start working with. Another major tip: study shared match lists. They are the absolute key to working out and identifying most matches. They are the power tool for identifying matches. I can't stress that enough. So let's look at an example here. Here is my paternal half-sister matching with a match named DT. We're just getting his initials, and his test is managed by Amia Tawes. So T could obviously be for Tawes, but we don't know for sure yet. Now, my first question is always, can I narrow this match down using shared matches? Can I eliminate portions of my tree and drill down to the portion the connection should be on? Well, let's see if I can, using my sister's shared match list with DT. Well, there at the top is our paternal half-brother. So straight away, that narrows this match down to our paternal side. Now, DT also matches several of our paternal first cousins, so that doesn't narrow the match any further, but it's further evidence that it's a paternal match. And then there's the pièce de résistance, the best match. DT matches our second cousin once removed, who is that magic generation closer to our common ancestors. He's our dad's second cousin, and that narrows the connection to my paternal great-grandmother's eighth of my tree. I have eliminated everything else, and DT must relate to me, probably either through my Cullen line or my Nicol line. So I'm looking for Cullens or Nichols, Whiteheads, Kerrs, etc. in DT's ancestry. In order to make your shared match list as useful as possible, you need to try to convert as many of your highest matches into confirmed matches as you can. Confirmed matches are matches with whom you can identify common ancestors and paper trail relationships, like that second cousin once removed we just used. The more of these matches you can identify and catalogue, the bigger the reference set you'll have to help you with identifying additional matches and new matches as they appear. When you see these confirmed matches on the shared match list with a new match, it helps narrow down the options for you, like we've just done. It creates what I call a domino effect. So first, harvest your stack of confirmed matches, then use them to your advantage with your shared match list. The more confirmed matches, the easier it gets for you over time. Let's go back to the very first example we looked at, Anne, in her 80s, sharing 25 centimorgans with me and 123 with my dad's first cousin, V. Now, she appears in a family tree with one person that she manages on MyHeritage. So in essence, that's just going to be her. So really there's no tree at all. Can shared matches perhaps help me work out how I connect to her? Well, the shared match list on MyHeritage is very detailed. It tells me both how the tester, in this case V, and the comparison match, in this case Anne, matches the shared match. And the top shared match happens to be Anne's son. MyHeritage is telling us it's Anne's son. So as someone so closely related to Anne, if he has a tree, that's going to help me get to the bottom of the match with Anne. And indeed, he did have a very small tree, just back to grandparents, but that was enough because remember, I'm building my own robust tree and I'm building my matches trees out as well. In this case, I quickly established that this is a third cousin once removed connection, as I already had his grandmother Jean on my tree. Check the match's ethnicity. This is another tip for eliminating parts of your tree. So here we have a match, Ben Theum, who matches my dad's first cousin, Anne. Now I'm looking for a connection through Scottish ancestry. Anne's ancestry is all Scottish and English. But Ben has 50% Southern China showing up. So that tells me that I can completely discount one side of his ancestry, and it happens to be his paternal side. Now, he doesn't have a tree, but through a bit of sleuthing, I was able to find out who his parents were, and I can then focus in on his maternal ancestry for the connection. Let's look at some unlinked tree tips now. And we're going to return to DT, managed by Mia Tawes, who we looked at when we were doing that narrowing process. Remember, we narrowed down to my Cullen or nickel line. Now there's an unlinked tree, and I always want to investigate an unlinked tree. It's called Mia, and it has 135 people in it. Now, Mia is obviously, for Mia Tawes, the manager of this test. So always investigate unlinked trees, but do so with great caution and an open mind. Remember, the tester may not even be represented on the unlinked tree or trees, and certainly doesn't have to be the home person. In many cases, especially when there's a manager, they might not be. So my first big tip here is we have to go and look at the profile page of that manager. And that's a major tip. Check the profile page. Check it for the tester, or if there's a manager, check it for the manager. Do not bypass this step because you might be missing some helpful clues. So we're looking now at Mia Tawes' profile page, the manager of DT's kit. Now, on a profile page on Ancestry, you might find age details, current location details, a profile photograph, a bio, research interests, including surnames of interest, level of research expertise, additional family trees. There's lots of potential there, but of course, some of them don't have very much at all. In Mia's case, we can see that there is 2 family trees. There is an additional one, a private searchable Toll family tree, as well as the public Mia tree. So our tester could be on either one of those. We also, on the left-hand side, get some profile information. There's a profile photograph. There's an age range, when she joined and when she last signed in. So I want to investigate this Mia public family tree because it's the only one of the 2 I can investigate at this point. And looking at the home person, the first thing that jumps out at us is that there aren't any Tawes, and there's nothing even with a surname beginning with T. So very quickly, I am suspecting that the home person is possibly Mia, and this has nothing to do with our tester DT's ancestry. Now, in cases like this, my biggest tip is to always check if the home person has a spouse attached. And if they do have a spouse attached, like in this case, a private spouse and a number of children, always look at that spouse on the tree to see if a tree for their ancestors has been built out. And in this case, Mia's spouse is clearly the Tawes. And even more importantly than that, look which surname is showing up. Cullen, the very part of my tree I had narrowed this match down to. So I'm excited now. I think I'm cooking with gas. I'm on the right track. Thomas McFarlane Cullen, DT's, we think, great-grandfather, died in Victoria, Australia. And a large number of my Cullen family ended up in Victoria, Australia. So there's another bit of evidence for me. And I did a bit of social media sleuthing as well. And I found Mia Tawes on Facebook. And she even had Mia McCarr, her maiden name, in brackets. Now, all of these names that I'm using here are anonymized, of course, but these are genuine examples all the same. So, as I keep saying, check your own tree. I checked my own tree and I found Thomas McFarlane Cullen already on it. I didn't have the more recent generations, but I did have him. So the most recent common ancestors in this case are my 4th great-grandparents, John Cullen and Elizabeth Morton. DT and I are 5th cousins exactly. I've identified this match using every clue available on the site and a bit of online sleuthing. Because I've built so many of my collateral lines already, this match was quite easy to identify. If you have a large, robust tree, you're simply not going to remember every name on it all of the time. So it's always worth searching your own tree to see if you have any of your match's ancestors on it. Use all the work you've already done in the past to help you now. What about wrongly linked trees? I know I'm telling you, make sure you link your tree, but many people forget or don't know they should link their tree, and some make mistakes or deliberately link their tree to the wrong person. So in this case, we have Hayley. There's a profile picture of a young woman next to her name. And when I looked at the linked tree, I saw that the tree was linked to a private male with a mother born in 1875. Now, putting aside the gender discrepancy, Hayley certainly did not look elderly, which this private male would have to be if his mother was born in 1875. So when I researched the linked tree, turned it to the home person, I found that the home person actually was Hayley herself, and the person she had linked her DNA to was her grandfather. That made much more sense. Private tree tips now. So I have filtered my ancestry match list by private linked trees here. And I'm coming across a match named Amelia Cram, 95 centimorgan match, excellent match with a private linked tree with 5,159 people in it. So an excellently sized private linked tree at that. Now, the first tip I always give when looking at private trees and female profiles like Amelia is check to see if Cram shows up on her private linked tree. Now, you have to remember that private linked trees are still searchable on the site. We can't pull up the tree and have a look at the pedigree, but we can search for surnames within that tree. So I'm going to search for Cram to see if it might be Amelia's maiden name or married name. And when I searched for it, she didn't show up in the list. In fact, I just got a 21 centimorgan match named Kenneth. Therefore, Cram is not on her private linked tree as one of her ancestors, and it's likely to be a married name. So, of course, the next thing I need to do is look at her profile page and all of the trees that she is maintaining on the site. And it's easy to spot the tree that she's linked to her results. There's the 5,000 person tree, and it's called the Hand Cullen tree. Aha, something is ringing a big bell here. There's my Cullen name again. So now that she could match in with the Cullens, I want to go back and search to see if she has any Cullens on her tree. I could even add in the birth location of Glasgow where my Cullens came from. And sure enough, Amelia shows up in that search result. So she does have Cullens on her private link tree. And at this point, with a 95 centimorgan match, I'm thinking, well, she could be at the third cousin level. Could she possibly descend from both my second great grandparents, John Cullen and Janet Nichol? So always think about the spouse. And I'm now going to search to see if she has any Nichols from Glasgow in her tree. And indeed, she shows up again. So that's telling me that she's almost certainly a descendant of both John and Janet. And now that I've narrowed it down to that, I can keep going. I can look at all the children of John and Janet, taking my line out of the equation. And this is the clever bit, search the match list for the surnames of the spouses of those children to see if just one of the spousal surnames shows up, because that will narrow my match with Amelia down one more generation. And when I did that, I found she matched to the McFarlane surname, which was the surname of John and Janet's son Thomas's wife. So I now know she's on Thomas's line. And I can repeat this process for the spouses on the next generation down, and then the next, using the work I've done before to build my collateral lines to aid me. Now, obviously, if I haven't built my collateral lines, I'm not going to be able to do this. So that's why it's so important to set yourself up to succeed like that. What if there's no tree? So a few tips for no tree cases now. Here is a match to my mum. Again, just initials, MC, and a manager, Nicole Crittens, and no tree. Often a manager is a close family member, like we saw with Mia Tods, but not always. It's likely, since Nicole's surname begins with a C and the male tester's surname begins with a C, that it is the same surname again. I suspected he would be her husband, father, brother, or son, but how could I find out when there's no tree to give me any clues? Well, I first needed to check her profile and then do some online sleuthing. I have to get off site and go look elsewhere. So I checked her profile, nothing there, as there is on many occasions when there's no tree, no age, no location, no additional information to help. So I went to Google searching and I did an exact search in quotation marks. I also put a wild card in the middle of her name in case she had a middle name that popped up with some results. And one of the top results was an article in a small US newspaper with a photograph of a Nicole Crittens and her husband, Mike, attending a local event. Mike, could that be my MC? And another thing I want to point out about this kind of searching is sometimes it won't be a name that you see on the testing site. Sometimes it'll be what looks like a username with numbers, etc. Always Google that username in case the person has used it elsewhere online and you can identify them that way. So the next step, now that I've got a potential name for my tester, is to look specifically for obituaries. Now, of course, I don't believe my tester has passed away, but his parents or grandparents could have, and I could get family history information to get me a tree started from an obituary. So I'm doing an exact search. I'm looking for an obituary that mentions both Michael Crittens and Nicole, using his Sunday name, but I'd also try it with Mike. And I got a hit, a Jenny Rivatelli who died in 2004 and was the loving grandmother of Michael Crittens and his fiancée at the time, Nicole. So that gets me started. I then looked for a marriage between a Crittens and a Rivatelli, and I found Alvin Crittens married Anne Rivatelli. I then did more obituary searching, looking for obituaries that mentioned Alvin and Anne, trying to take things back another generation to a deceased generation that I could build a tree from. And I got another good hit. I found the beloved mother of Alvin Joseph Crittens and his wife Anne, and it told me that she was the daughter of the late Evelyn Campbell and David O'Keefe. Now, again, always remember and think about what you are trying to achieve. I'm not looking for Italian heritage here like Rivatelli's. I'm looking for something Scottish, and Evelyn Campbell stands out to me as a potential Scottish line. So I'm going to gamble on building her out first. Of course, I'll go back and build the others if she doesn't work, but she did work. Evelyn Campbell turned out to be the great-granddaughter of my fourth great-grandparents, Archibald Walker and Agnes Craig. Therefore, Archibald and Agnes are Mike Crittens' fourth great-grandparents and my mum's third great-grandparents, making it a fourth cousin once removed relationship. I've identified the link from no more than a set of initials and a manager's name to go on. And even better than that, it gave me an entire new branch for my tree. So key points: make sure your own tree is as robust as possible and use it as a reference for your DNA matches. Build out the trees of your matches to find connections. Pick off your low-hanging fruit so you have more confirmed matches to help you identify others. Remember that domino effect. For unlinked or no tree matches, always check the profile page and use internet sleuthing. Search for obituaries, Google usernames, do profile photo searches, and try out social media. Finally, don't forget to try to make contact and collaborate with your matches. Many won't reply, but some will, and they can be a gold mine. I'll finish with my contact information, my email address. You can follow me on Facebook and on Twitter and LinkedIn. Please do download the syllabus. There'll be lots of information in there, including more information on my publications and other lectures you can watch. Thanks for watching and do enjoy the rest of RootsTech 2022.